we do a piece every year. 3 things that you should do to make sure that you are visible come the festive period. And we'll continue to do that. We'll still write that piece. We'll still put that out there. But we spend an abnormal amount of time every year, far too late in the year, trying to help people panic optimize to get their websites in a place that they can be well positioned to get the traffic and get the inquiries, get the sales, for the December rush. I think the most important point we try and make every year, and there are a few that remember it and apply it in the following year, is the time to be ready for December is not in November. It's now. It's maybe even gone by already.
Absolutely.
And I think it would maybe be good to start at the end of the process, which is with the delivery on your end. I unbelievably had never heard about you spoke about how facilities could scale, for these peak periods, and there's all these things that you have seen people do and enable companies to do come these peak periods. So maybe we can just talk about a little bit about that, and from your own perspective, what people maybe haven't gotten right in the past as far as preparing themselves for December goes, and what they might be able to do, to help this December be their most memorable.
What we've seen is a lot of businesses start engaging in the likes of August, in the likes of September, really understanding what their throughput capacity looks like, because everything has a knock-on effect. So whether your website actually has the ability to handle that traffic, do you have enough pay gates in order to ease that pressure in terms of checkout? Do you have the ability to fulfill those orders? Do you have an overflow facility that is able to cater and to give you that ability to flex that you can switch on and off at any one time? Because, forecast...
That was very interesting. I'd never heard of that before. So maybe just explain that for the layman who doesn't know.
So traditionally, B2B businesses were a lot easier to predict. You would have cycles, you would have seasonality, you would have cases where there's a forecasted volume that it was so well in tune, right, that you knew at any one time that X store was going to take this amount of product over a period of November, December, right? Stats showed that. Here comes this new kid on the block, ecommerce, which gives you access to all variations of that. Now you can have a broom next to your kind of your t-shirt with your shoes. Now those all have different volumetrics. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all good business, because it doesn't necessarily fit into a 1-ton bucky. So now you've got configuration issues. So businesses that have been able to get ahead of the curve were businesses that weren't necessarily heavy on fixed assets, on the basis that they had a variable cost model where they only paid per delivery, paid per
So
POD.
fixed assets, again, just for the layman, would be a building, a warehouse.
Well, they would have a warehouse, so they would have to kit it out. They would have to put all the staff and the resources in there. They would have to kit it out with a whole bunch of PCs or ancillary kind of services.
It's the tech, it's the labor, it's the guard, it's the facilities, it's the racks, it's the forklift, it's the whole thing.
It's the whole tutti. In addition to that,
the variable terminology used there now is your ability to tap into more of that without having to go and invest in another whole warehouse.
Absolutely. So that gives a lot of the SMMEs the ability to scale quickly, but at not necessarily outlaying all that additional cost, all that expenditure. Because if you're such as a business owner that doesn't have direct access to that capital, there's a trade-off. So
it's a major
trade-off. So you say to yourself, well, look, how am I going to compete against some of these bigger players? How do I get a share of this wallet, but I don't have the means to scale? So there's companies out there, there's businesses out there that actually their primary foundation was built on a variable cost model. So the very, very simple thing, it's easy. It's a variable cost model on the basis that you have a fixed expense. So it sounds a little bit like it's kind of talking,
which is basically your delivery fee. So
basically,
you tell me it's going to cost you 20 Rand to deliver.
Yes. But
don't have to worry about warehouse, I don't have to worry about tech, I don't have to worry about people, the forklift, the electricity bill, nothing. I know I'm paying 20 Rand a delivery, as an example.
Absolutely.
Probably
So,
not 20 Rand, but you know
yeah,
what I mean.
so the terminology fix means that you as an entrepreneur can actually forecast better because you know that your payaway is going to remain constant. It's not something that could now creep up on you and say, oh, I've got this water utility bill that the Oaks, kind of ran riot on, or I had the additional labor that needed to come in, whatever the case may be. I have a simple cost per parcel understanding. Also, over that period is that you see that a lot of the traditional businesses that were set up on this were able to scale and to downscale quickly, whereas your traditional B2B
Yeah, I mean,
guys,
you got to hold that cost for the whole
well,
year.
absolutely. And you know what it's like. I mean, in the property game, guys would say, well, listen, I want to take out a minimum 12 months lease or 6 months lease. So it actually affects you towards the latter part of that cycle, because now you've got this overarching kind of cost base that is just lingering there that you can't get rid of.
Yeah.
So
But you don't want to lose the volume over.
But you don't want to lose the volume.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we've also adopted a mentality in the last mile space is not all revenue is good revenue. Talking about parcel mix, parcel size, parcel movement. And in the pursuit of revenue, you could equally damage your reputation. And we've seen this. We've seen this over a period of time that wherever businesses find themselves in any one time, particularly with the seasonality of transport, over this period, a lot of businesses want to capitalize on that. And they say, well, we'll take more than what we can. And that then in turn actually affects quality of service, reliability.
Because then you didn't deliver my knocks. Now my customer's pissed off with me, doesn't want to shop with me ever again because I didn't deliver. So I'm not going to do my deliveries with you anymore.
Absolutely. So now it becomes a trust issue. It becomes a credibility issue. We saw that many years ago, where we saw that when this first kind of Black Friday model appeared. I mean, it was public knowledge. I mean, the fact that some of the websites fell over and people were hanging on there for 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours. The introduction of
I don't even shop on Black Friday. It's such a shit experience. I actually don't care. I'd rather not save 20 Rand on my chicken.
Well, that's
and go and buy it the next day. No, I can just go and buy it.
And what we've seen is that sometimes the specials aren't necessarily that great.
They're not so special.
They're not so special. So to get back to also part and parcel of helping businesses through peak season planning, is a lot of businesses, instead of having a Black Friday, actually have a Black November. So that then also creates a far better cost structure throughout the course of the month. Your volume inevitably does increase, but it increases at minimal increments.
The peak day, but it's
I mean, something that we actually saw prior to doing this is, it's still quite interesting to see that your Google kind of searches, maybe you can talk a little bit into that you're still seeing over the kind of 2024 September to November period. November is still a very high threshold in terms of searches.
A good juncture to flip the coin and come to the beginning of the sales cycle then, I suppose. And then we'll merge back up again. So it's two completely different worlds, but it's exactly the same thing. It's actually uncanny. So your search trends, so what we look at for any business that comes to us and says, we want to sell more stuff through our website, can you help us? And the first thing that you do is you go and you look at search volume and search intent. Search volume, quite simply, is anyone going to Google to look for the thing that you're selling? Is that consumer behavior? So we tap into Google search volume history. We can see for a keyword how many people search for this thing, and you can see the trends, ebbs and flows throughout the year. Search intent is more important. Google doesn't necessarily tell you that. We've got some of our own tech that helps us understand this, and some very smart people that interpret it. That basically helps you understand what is the intent behind that search. So if you're looking for something that is very transactional, there's a strong purchase intent linked to it. So if I'm looking for bike shop near me, or if I'm looking for, using things that we can both relate to, a pair of Adidas, Adi Zero, specific model, specific size, specific color, there's high purchase intent there. Probably much lower volume, but very high intent, very valuable term. As opposed to someone that's just looking for running shoes. That's quite informational. The one is someone looking to gain information on a broad topic that your shoe could fit into. The other is someone looking specifically for this exact shoe. Which one do you think is going to have a higher likelihood of selling? More likely the person looking for that specific model. So by blending those two things, you understand, okay, there is opportunity or there isn't. Don't waste your money on, on SEO or on Google Ads. There's maybe better things for you to do. But if there is, which more often than not, there is opportunity there, we then submit a plan that says that this is how you gain visibility for that. Visibility, quite simply, is measured in keyword ranking positions, is a very simple way to understand it. So if you are trying to sell Nike Cortez shoes, you'd see for your website and the page that shoe is on, where do you rank? If someone says Nike Cortez, you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down to page 10 of Google, right? And the higher that goes, the more visible you are. We know that you're visible when we can see something called impressions coming through, which you get from Google Search Console. So that means someone can see you in the results page of Google. If you get an impression, it means they've seen your website there. Leading performance metric number 1. 2, what will happen if you are visible and you do have that shoe and someone is looking for it and you're not buried at the bottom, they'll click on that. So then you're going to see traffic, Google Analytics, Google Search Console. You can get that data from there. They come through to your site. If you've got a good user experience, the items in stock, you've got favorable delivery returns, you priced right, all those boxes happen. You then get the thing that we're really after, which is the conversion, the sale. Go through payment gateway, checkout, then you guys kick in. So this all sounds, this is oversimplifying the journey. Now, as all the trends, we looked at 10 different terms from Nike shoes as an overarching category to bicycles, specific models. There's not one of them that doesn't trend upwards towards December. I think Nike shoes, just that one vertical, not shirts, not running pants, not sweaters, not hoodies, nothing. Just Nike shoes has 500,000 searches in the month of November and December, and the 3 months before that, it hovers at around 350,000. So there's 150,000 more people Googling for Nike shoes. That is an astronomical figure. And if you use a conversion rate of 3 to 7%, it can vary. It's a material number. It's a pretty big deal. And people generally wake up in October, November. They're busy planning their December specials and what are our pages and what are we doing for Black Friday. It's like, oh shit, we're not visible for this thing that we're selling. Okay, cool. Let's start now.
And a lot of the groundwork actually should have been quite some time.
If you want to be visible in December, November, December, at best, and this is assuming that you've got a well-structured website that already understands Google and performs well, you're looking at a 3-month window to look at site architecture, the pages and the formation of them and the structure of them. Are they correct? You're then looking at content. So if you're going to produce new content for that page, if you had a page that worked well last year, Black Friday 2024, you're going to update certain contextual things, the date, the year. Google likes fresh content. So there's work that needs to be done there. So you've got to localize it. You've got to bring it up to date so that it's relevant for this year. So the content needs to be produced. Then you put that on the page. Then Google still needs to crawl that information, go away, put it back in its index, decide what it wants to do with it. And then you'll start to see, where you land up. And then you start a process of optimizing that, on page, off page. So relatively technical terms. There's lots of things that sit behind that. And that work all happens to battle your way up into position 1, 2, and 3. Now, bear in mind how many people there are out there trying to rank for Nike shoes. And the many different variations out there. So there's lots of companies trying to do that. There is a handful that understand the work that needs to happen ahead of time to be visible at, in November. And it literally, you can win the race simply by being more prepared and just being intentional. Understanding that, in my store, we sell these things. It could be tables and chairs. It could be outdoor furniture. It could be, there's so many things that are, bonuses come. There's a higher purchasing power at that point in time. Impulses through the roof. Children, there's all these events that happen. There's Black Friday. There's all these hype things that happen. If you're not visible when people are going online to look for them, which is a growing, a never-ending growth in terms of the amount of people that are going and shopping online. And online means, Checker 60 is online. People are becoming more and more and more comfortable with the safety of shopping online. And thanks to people that are doing what you do, they're becoming more and more impressed by the service that they're getting because that expectation is risen and people have delivered against it. My shirt didn't fit, reverse logistics. People are becoming okay with the fact that I can just say that it didn't fit and it magically goes back and I get credited on another one. Another massive dilemma we can dive into and I'm sure unpack for hours on end. And all of those things, you just have to be intentional and planned with. And what the subject matter is of what you need to do is, really neither here nor there. We're obviously experts in that field. There are others. Access to quality resources is not impossible. It just takes planning and it takes intent. And it's not, there's this, we often use the analogy of the builder and the architect. No one expects the guy putting the bricks in the wall of your house to understand the load that a beam can hold. That's an architect's job. The builder's job is to put the brick there nicely and finish it off properly and make sure that all those things bond nicely together. Now, the guys that are responsible for understanding the performance of a website within Google and how well your website performs in terms of visibility, in terms of traffic, in terms of its ability to convert, that is the job of a search marketing agency, a performance marketing agency that specializes in SEO.
So I think, Dave, obviously we've covered quite a lot of, from the beginning stage towards the end stage type of thing. What would you say is the one fundamental thing from a Google search or from an SEO perspective or whatever platform there is to give you that edge? What would you say is the primary focus heading into this busy period?
I think the most important thing, if you do nothing else, it's to understand what it is that you know what you're selling, you know what your product is. Understand how are people searching for what it is that I sell. Keyword research, do that. Then understand, okay, I now understand how people are searching for what it is that I sell. Where do I rank for that query? So how well do I perform in Google for the thing that I'm trying to sell and the way that people are searching for it? And that gap that exists between how well you're performing against the thing that you're trying to sell for or how well you aren't performing, you can then close that gap by knowing, okay, these are the things that I need to do to bridge that gap. You're going to have a better December than you did last year. It's as simple as that. If nothing else, just nail that part. And that means being a little bit intentional. If you don't have an agency on hand, reach out to one, reach out to us. We can give you that information pretty easily. Or go and look into Search Console yourself. There's so much information available on YouTube to help you understand how to use Google Search Console, which pretty much every website should have set up. And that'll tell you how well you're performing. You can extrapolate all that information out from there. And you can, most people that have gone through the effort of setting up an e-commerce store, resilient, pretty driven, stubborn individuals.
Of course.
If you go and apply yourself to it, you'll figure it out. If you don't have the time for that, there's guys out there like us that can help bridge that gap for you. But that would be my single piece of advice if there isn't time or capacity to do anything else.
And I think it's also with the mindset of not it's not a one shop, one stop fits all type of scenario.
One size fits none when it comes to SEO.
Absolutely. I think it's where business finds itself at a particular point in time and what is important to them at that point in time that resonates the most, really. That gives them that edge. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, because you don't, depending, if you are, trying to think of a good example, if you are bootlegger, let's think of a better example. People that you'll interact with in your travel. So think of like a Super Quick or a Speedy or a Tiger Wheel and Tire as a great example. Like they have massive trends towards the end of the year. People pretty much all get your tires checked, go to your battery, whatever. It's almost always at that point in time, particularly the Varleys heading down to Durban, which I know we both miss. As a prime example, they are not going to have a major shift in their priorities. What they might have is different specials. They might have a different brand of tires they've brought in, but let's call a spade a spade. There's no major change there. So they can be very focused on their foundation and making sure, and they can really level that up every year, as opposed to a big e-tailer, someone that's trying to bring in a variety of goods where there's lots of change. There you would need to prioritize. No one has a blank checkbook. No one's able to optimize everything. So in that instance, you would need to prioritize and understand, we're going to make sure that we are, for a furniture company, we're going to dominate cupboards this year. We're going to dominate, coffee table. Like, you won't believe how much search volume is for coffee table, side table, stool.
I mean, my wife and I are doing the same thing. I mean, I've looked at probably about 12 variations of coffee tables in the last month.
It's insane. And it's like, you think informational now and you think transactional terms. It'll change the way you think now when you're doing your own Googling.
Absolutely.
And that's, so that can ebb and flow, but it all comes back to the same thing. And I want to get your closing thoughts as well, but it's throughput capacity. What is it? It's be intentional and plan ahead. That's really the point. Like, just intention. What is your intention? What is the thing that you're trying to solve? Are you set up right now? If it was December, if it was November, so the real peak is November from a search point of view. December's still quite high, but it's lower than November. Are you geared right now? If you're going to look for that query right now, are you there? If you're a transport company, if you're a last mile logistics company, and you're trying to pick up some business for the hype that's coming up, people go and look for you. Are you there? Overnight delivery, next day delivery, urgent deliveries. Like, if you're one of those people, if you're one of those providers, are you visible? Because there's going to be a lot of people looking for you in the next couple of months. And if you aren't, you need to. The gap analysis is, what do I need to do to get there? And if you don't know the answer to that question, you need to go and get someone that can help give it to you. And that's intentional. It's planning. It's being, And
you raise very pertinent points. I think, we've seen in the industries businesses that were intentional over this period have actually gained more business in a January, February, March period. And for one standout reason, it's the trust factor. It's knowing that if I'm going to give this in your care, that it's going to be delivered on time and my experience is consistent.
Did you deliver a smile?
Did you deliver a smile? Absolutely. And it's kind of that how'd you make me feel kind of conversation. And I think people very much in our industry don't appreciate the value of that. I've seen a lot of businesses, say to themselves, "Well, look, we'll say sorry in January. Let's just get through the busy period." And that's not necessarily that not at all is the right mindset. But the point is being intentional, really understanding at what point will my business be able to flex? Do I have access to that flexibility over this period? How can I exit from that flexibility so I don't have a lingering tail that carries over into the new year? And how do I formulate a trust factor with my existing customer base? And if that means I've got to have the harder conversation up front,
exactly,
it's a rather realistic output, intentional for a greater success story later. And businesses that have adopted that mindset, have adopted that culture, have actually come out of peak season or peak seasons, kind of like looking around saying, well, did we actually have a peak season? And they've done in excess nearly 20 to 30% more throughput. And I think that is a key message that from a last mile perspective is important for a lot of e-tailers to appreciate is, yes, you're heading into a busy period, but have intentional conversations with your suppliers. Have intentional conversations of how does this affect the supply chain, and where can we win by sometimes taking on less, but it contributes more. And it's a very, very tough one because, again, as I mentioned earlier, is that in the pursuit of revenue, sometimes it's our own worst enemy. And we've seen businesses that have taken on in excess, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 deliveries over a busy period, and fall over, and have lost credibility in that. So this now comes down to reliability, credibility, and that trust factor that in the whole supply chain talks to planning ahead, right? In a nutshell.
And knowing what is out there. I mean, it's one thing to plan. It's one thing to plan knowing what opportunities are out there. That flex thing for me was, I just had no idea that kind of stuff existed. And I know it's not available from everyone, and there are a lot of very onerous contracts, and people will force you into leases and make things difficult for you. I never knew it to be otherwise, that there was the ability to have a fixed number for a delivery, and it can, if it exceeds the facilities that I have, you can tap into it almost like a logistics overdraft facility.
Yeah, it's
where
almost like
you're
an
not,
overdraft facility.
You're not penalized. You just that for me was, which might be completely ridiculous to you. Like, how do you think that's so innovative? I'm like, I just really never knew that was there. And it's so handy for so many people, because we do hear those conversations. We're not, people don't turn to us for fulfillment advice, but obviously we know enough people in the industry, and can make recommendations, and that certainly would be one of them. I haven't sat in a boardroom and heard anyone mention that. I don't think it's common knowledge. That's why we do these things. That's why we have conversations. And
absolutely, and that's what this platform's about, right? Is to actually, it's more around sharing experience, and hopefully somebody that does watch it gains a little bit of insights into it, and if it works for their business, it works for their business. And again, I think it's also enabling a lot of the kind of smaller businesses to be on a level playing field, and it speaks to some of the entrepreneurs that are in a dichotomy now of, what do I chase heading into this November period?
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. So,
but if you're planning now, you're already ahead.
And absolutely, that's the message. Yeah,
that is the message. Plan now, and you'll be able to execute in December.
Absolutely.
With a few grey hairs, no doubt. It's going to be tough. It is for all of us, but
yeah, absolutely,
we'll get there.
For sure.
Dev, if anyone does have, this will obviously be posted on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to reach out to you, are they welcome to jump in the DMs?
Absolutely, absolutely, with pleasure. I think the more we can kind of have these community conversations and enable people to have access to information, I think it will only bode the industry well, make it a lot more of an equal playing field for everybody. And I think also, you build formidable relationships in terms of that. And, I think when I see a lot of the, younger businesses that need to mature, that doesn't necessarily have access to these funds, there's a lot of big corporates that are starting to create these SME engagements, these kind of conferences where you can have these conversations. But I think sometimes in those environments, overwhelming, there's a lot that's en masse. Yeah. Whereas this is a bit more personal, and it could be tailored for your specific needs. I read just an interesting thought on that, is that I came across an article the other day that in the pursuit of this e-commerce footprint, a lot of the guys in 2022, 2023 had to have access to tech, have to have access to ancillary services. Their prediction was, that this was the way of the future, and fast forward into 2025, we actually saw a very different turn. A lot of the software or the services that they had available, the customer adoption to it was all but 20%. You had guys that had, multiple apps running at any one time, and 20% customer adoption was actually really using that service. And really, so you ask yourself the question: well, did you really need that? Did it give you a competitive edge?
Hindsight's 2020, eh?
Absolutely, and I think this gives that platform to say, look, is it really a need right now?
Well, I look forward to unpacking many more of these. Pray God I haven't scared you away from doing any more of these.
No, absolutely.
Know where you live, you know where we are.
The hunting experience, so it's been good. I'm glad you could get my solar panel in, but
Dev, look forward to many more. Thanks for coming through, and hope again soon.
Yeah, thank you.